From the banks of the Allegheny, welcome to Film Bits. True Detective, Season 1, Episode 3, Part 1. All right, guys, we're going to get into this quickly, but we've got 1/4 of the season down. It's 8 episodes. We've had a lot of groundwork laid. We've had a lot of characters starting to develop. This kicks off where hopefully I start digging in, getting into a little bit more analysis, showing you guys some more things that are out there, hopefully extending some understandings, all that good stuff, okay? And I love the start of this episode, so let's do it. T-Bone Burnett, legendary music producer, was in charge of the soundtrack. Love this open pan high shot at dawn. And there's our broken down church from the last episode of episode 2, the last part of episode 2. And there's a good well-lit shot of that antlered, naked female form without a face. That's kind of interesting. There's no facial structure to it, but it does have breasts. Nice low shot and lighting here on Marty and Russ, too. Notice there's some biblical scripture on the walls as well.
Footprints in the ashes, but he saw you.
Then we transition into a
He saw you in those dark corners.
traveling tent sermon kind of thing.
Oh, my brothers, he heard those thoughts. You are a stranger to yourself, and yet he knows you. And when your hard heart made you like unto the stone and broke you from his body, which is the stars and the wind between the stars, he knew you.
Crane shot here on the tent as Marty and Rust approach. And let's pause here real quick. As you can see, there is no escaping religion in this series. We've only gone through 2 episodes. They're blaming the Erath crime on Satanists. We've talked about a religious school that has closed down. We were in a church in episode 1. Marty talks to Rust about not thinking about things a certain way. There's a huge amount of faith going on in this community. And the reason that religion is so pervasive is that Nick Pizzolatto actually based this story off of a real live event. And maybe we'll talk more about that when we get to the very end, but that's a long way to go. But the religious motif keeps appearing over and over. Remember, Dora Lang had found a god. She wanted to be a nun, which is kind of weird because we're not dealing with Catholicism here. This is just pretty much straight up versions of the Protestant faith. But there's all this connecting tissue. And then there's the weirdness of Carcosa and the Yellow King. That doesn't quite fit into the Judeo-Christian belief system. All right. If you recognize this actor, he's been in lots of stuff. The thing I really remember him from is Boardwalk Empire from HBO. He was Nucky Thompson's brother and kind of chief right-hand man.
And the face you wear is not your own.
Parish FD said the church burned down 4 months earlier. No prints. Put out an APB on Friends of Christ. A week later, we were in Franklin. Revival ministry. Old-time religion. You can imagine what Mr. Charisma thought of that.
Calling us Mr. Charisma.
What do you think the average IQ of this group is, huh?
Can you see Texas up there on your high horse? What do you know about these people?
Just observation and deduction. See a propensity for obesity, poverty, a yen for fairy tales. Folks putting what few bucks they do have in the little wicker baskets being passed around. I think it's safe to say that nobody here is going to be splitting the atom, Marty.
You see that? Your fucking attitude. Not everybody wants to sit alone in an empty room beating off the murder manuals. Some folks enjoy community, the common good.
Yeah, well, if the common good's got to make up fairy tales, then it's not good for anybody.
Your sorrows pin.
Okay, so again, we already know how these guys feel, but Rust really, remember, Rust is a pessimist. That's like his philosophical mindset. That's his worldview. And as a result of his pessimism, he's also an atheist, and he doesn't like the practices of organized religion. Marty, of course, being a traditional Southern male who has the two kids and the wife and a good job and is very much a steady Eddie, not bad at his job, nothing spectacular at his job. They're going to, again, butt heads on this whole notion while they're waiting to do whatever it is for their job, the whole reason that they're here for. I love Rust's line, I don't think anyone here is going to be splitting the atom, Marty. It's just such good dialogue. And hats off to Woody Harrelson. If this were a comedy routine, he would be the straight guy and Rust would be the comedian. Rust gets all the great dialogue, but I do like Marty's line about staying home and, masturbating to murder manuals all evening. It's one of the few times we hear Marty get a good bar back at Rust. Pick it back up.
They divide you from what your heart knows. And there are a lot of good hearts out there. I'm looking out there, I'm seeing a lot of good hearts out there. I see a lot of joy out there.
I mean, can you imagine if people didn't believe what things they get up to?
Exact same thing they do now, just out in the open.
Bullshit. It'd be a fucking freak show of murder and debauchery, and you know it.
If the only thing keeping a person decent is the expectation of divine reward, then, brother, that person is a piece of shit. And I'd like to get as many of them out in the open as possible.
I guess your judgment is infallible, piece of shit wise.
Yeah, they are going after
that
it.
notebook is a stone tablet?
What's it say about life? You gotta get together. Tell yourself stories that violate every law of the universe. Just to get through the goddamn day? No. What's that say about your reality, Marty?
When you get to talking like this, you sound panicked.
You figure it's all a scam, huh? All them folks?
Mm-hmm.
They just wrong.
Oh, yeah. Been that way since one monkey looked at the sun and told the other monkey, he said, for you to give me your fucking share. People. So goddamn frail, they'd rather put a coin in a wishing well than buy dinner.
Jesus Christ, your arms open and close. The echoes of my life could never contain a single truth about you. You move the feather in the ash, you touch the leaf with its flame.
Transference of fear and self-loathing to an authoritarian vessel. It's catharsis. He absorbs their dread with his narrative. Because of this, he's effective in proportion to the amount of certainty he can project. Certain linguistic anthropologists think that religion is a language virus, that it rewrites pathways in the brain, dulls critical thinking.
Well, I don't use $10 words as much as you, but for a guy who sees no point in existence, you sure fret about it an awful lot. And you still sound panicked.
So Marty, even though, like he said, even though Rust is getting the upper hand and Rust has a lot of very interesting ideas, another thing Rust is, besides being a pessimist, is a bit of a nihilist. He kind of thinks that life is not really worth living. He said early on that we should all as a species kill ourselves. We just don't have the courage to do it. And Marty calls him on it. Marty says, for a guy who doesn't believe any of this stuff, you're kind of giving it a lot of time. So even though Rust gets all the dialogue, Marty is perhaps the winner of this rhetorical battle because he's more succinct and he can give as much as he can take. And I really love the dialogue here, the way Pizzolatto, the screenwriter, wrote this. Because it's true to their character, and they both have very valid points going after one another. And in Rust's case, also going after religion. I love the line about a language virus. You can tell he has a strong animosity towards religion, yet he has that crucifix above his bed, which he explained in an earlier episode why he has that crucifix. Let's pick it back up.
At least I'm not racing to a red light.
Now, I love this hypocrisy right here, right? So Marty is a is a good religious man. He's won the battle, one would think, but then he flips off Rust in a mobile house of the Lord, if you will, right? Because this is just a church; it's just got a tent around it, which would be kind of counter, probably, to the wishes of the Christian faith, and doesn't care. So there's a little bit of a wiggle room for Marty's belief. You know, it might not be the most stringent. Pick it back up.
See, we all got what I call a life trap. There's gene deep certainty that things will be different. That you'll move to another city and meet the people that'll be the friends for the rest of your life. That you'll fall in love and be fulfilled. Fucking fulfillment. And closure. Where the fuck those two fucking empty jars to hold this shitstorm. Fucking nothing's ever fulfilled. Until the very end. And closure. No, nothing is ever over.
This episode, perhaps more than any of the other earlier ones for sure, we get a lot of Rust's philosophies, and he starts, really talking abstractly in metaphor and simile. If you guys have any questions or comments about any of that dialogue, be sure to drop them in the comments, because I would love to explain to you what I think he's going for, and maybe hear if you have a take, what you think he's going for, or if you can't wrap your head around it. I've watched this series enough that I've at least come up with my take on it. Not to say that that's the take, but I can at least maybe point you towards a pathway, and if you want to give it another look-see and see what you come up with.
Minister Terry, you recognize this girl?
I don't know for sure. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you. I want to say it's, no, I don't remember the name. Came pretty regular when we was in Eunice. No, I can't be sure. We get around since then. You? Oh.
No, you're right. We saw her in Eunice. Tina might know her.
Mm-hmm.
How long were you in Eunice?
About 6 months. Widow in Opelousas leased us cheap. We left when it caught fire.
Any idea how that happened?
Your people say criminal mischief. If I was to lay odds, maybe one of the widow's sons wanted us off the land. But we move on. We seek no title, no retribution.
I'm gonna go find Tina.
No. Great preaching. How long you been doing this?
Been pretty sure almost 20 years. We've had Friends of Christ the last 8.
You were at the church before that?
Independent evangelical. I came up on a Billy Tuttle, went to his college in Baton Rouge a couple years.
Okay, he just dropped a name, Billy Ray Tuttle. All right, that was the guy we saw in the cop station in episode 2 when the task force was being gathered. He was the tall, older gentleman. And it's his cousin that is the governor of the state of Louisiana within the world of this story. So we get another reference to Billy Ray Tuttle, in case you didn't remember the name and the connection.
I went to his college in Baton Rouge a couple years.
So back in Eunice, who painted the mural on the church wall?
Our children from our congregation painted. I'm sorry. Something happened to this girl you looking for?
Mr. Terrio, can we see the identification of your staff members?
We're going to stop it here on this lovely big old wide shot. All right, so we got some jousting, some fisticuffs, verbal fisticuffs there between Marty and Rust. I really love, that's one of my favorite sections of dialogue in the entire movie, outside of a couple of the car scenes. And now we're digging in a little deeper. They're still following up on Lang, and they still know they have the Fontenot girl that's disappeared. And now we've heard a connection to Tuttle again, so there's some connection there as well. So when we pick this up, we will be coming back into a rather they're not done here. We're going to come back here to this this tent church setting, and a rather interesting and kind of grisly discovery. Have a good one. Thanks for stopping by Film Bits. We'll see you for part 2. Bye bye.